Hello and welcome back to Raise the Trident. My name is Jake, and today we have another interview, kind of just keeping in line with all the stuff that's been coming out recently with the interviews about people's backgrounds in space. Today, our returning guest, he has been on the channel multiple times. He also was my very first interview when I first started this channel, so that was a really cool experience there. You probably know him at this point. He's one half of Locked On Mariners. I may know him as Waldo Springtime on Spotify. I also know him as Ahoythany Saltano. Welcoming back to the channel, Dane Gonzalez. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, everybody. Ahoythany Saltano here. Internet's busiest Mariner nerd.
Yeah, that
Sure.
works.
We'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Appreciate
it's a
you
good.
having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's always a treat to have you on the channel. And today, we're gonna go more into your background and kind of how you got to where you're at now. Because the first time I interviewed you, I did ask you like, where did your Mariners fandom like start? And that's like the only background question I really asked, and then it was just like Mariners talk and then music stuff. So
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we're gonna get a lot more in depth today. Before we get into that, something I need to clear up here, I feel like is pretty urgent. So a week ago on Twitter, I saw something that appalled me. There was a picture discovered of you wearing a Los Angeles Dodgers hat. So I need you to explain
Oh,
yourself.
I like baseball hats. That's it. Like
Okay.
I have a Dodgers hat. I have an A's hat. I have a Cleveland hat.
Okay.
I have I did used to have an Astros hat. I will admit that.
I
There are
yeah.
photos of me on a trip to now. All right. I bought that hat when they first joined the AL West, so they were really bad. This was like during the Bo Porter days, right? So
Mhm.
I was like, oh, this is back when they were the Astros, the Lastros, if you will. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll buy an Astros hat. I like the logo, whatever. So yeah, there's photos of me on a trip visiting my brother in California for Thanksgiving a long, long time ago of me rocking an Astros hat,
Yep.
which is unfortunate. But yeah, so I don't know. I like baseball hats. I'm probably
Okay.
gonna buy a White Sox hat soon. I've been wanting a White Sox hat. So
Yeah.
I like the old school Diamondbacks hats. I like the old school Rays hats. Like I'll probably buy those as well. But yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
I didn't switch allegiances. I didn't, they didn't also give me deferred money or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll let people decide if that's a good enough explanation. The big bag Dodgers and whatnot, they're
Sure. Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like they're kind of the National League equivalent of the Astros at this point, as far as like people not liking them. But
I'm
okay,
pretty sure that's my picture on here though, as well. Like
uh,
here, hold on. If I turn off my camera, is that what appears?
yeah,
It
it
is.
is.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
There's the
Yeah.
picture. Yeah, yeah. So I had to clear that up, and there's actually one other thing we're
Uh,
going to clear up. So I mentioned earlier
okay.
that like the first time we interviewed, I asked you where your Mariners fandom started. You stated your answer was that in the delivering room, the Mariners game was on TV, and that Chris
Yeah.
Bosio pitched on the Mariners and beat the Rangers about 8-0. I found the game on Baseball Reference. I'm not going to
Uh-huh.
release the date because I'm not sure if you want me to just say the date of your potential delivery, but the Mariners played in Arlington against the Rangers. Chris Bosio did throw 6 innings of 4 hit ball. That was caught by current Mariners manager Dan Wilson. Joey
Yeah.
Cora had 3 RBIs. Ken Griffey Jr. had 2 walks, and Edgar Martinez had an RBI. And one of the remarks I made was that what if Griffey hit a homer like right when you were delivered type thing. Turns out Paul
Uh,
Sorrento hit a dinger that night, so you might be a
there we
Paul
go.
Sorrento homer baby, is for all we know. So
Shout
yeah,
out to Paul Sorrento.
yeah,
Okay, so I believe that game was on April 30th, right?
correct, yeah,
Yeah, so I was born shortly after midnight. I was born at like 12:30 on May 1st, technically. So the game was over, I
yeah,
think. I would assume so by that
yeah.
point. So probably not a Paul Sorrento homer baby, but a Chris Bosio win baby, if you will.
Yeah, and well, I mean, Paul Sorrento did hit a home run while they were in the living room, so
Sure,
yeah,
yeah.
a little bit by association. So yeah, we're I guess going back into your background now, since that's the whole ultimate point of the interview. The first thing I mean I could find from you when it came to doing content and writing was SODO Mojo. So was that your first writing or content gig, or was there anything before that?
Yeah, by the way, hold on. My monitor has like just gone black. So I'm trying
Okay.
to reset that, but I can still hear you. So yeah, SODO Mojo was my first writing gig, and I'm back now. Am I laggy at
Yeah,
all?
no,
Let me
you're
know.
fine, and I can see you fine, so we're good.
Okay. So yeah, SODO Mojo was my first writing gig. I all right, so let's take it back. So that was 2018.
Hmm.
I had been here in Toronto for a couple of months. I was just visiting. Um, I was planning on just visiting for a month, propose to my now wife, then head back home and then plan a wedding and all this stuff. We wound up having me stay and planning a wedding and the a lot of time that I had stamped on my passport and all this stuff. That's a different story. But I was essentially just kind of like here, not able to work, simultaneously planning a wedding, but also kind of bored in general. And so I forget how I saw it, but I saw there was an opening at SODO Mojo. I applied and I got it. Technically Colby hired me, but there were also like higher ups there that made the decision. Um, and back then, frankly, they were like willing to hire anyone who had even a remote interest in writing. So it wasn't like there was anything special about me that stood out. But yeah, that's kind of how that started, and I just kept on doing it while well past the point that Caroline and I got married. Because it took about a year for me to get permanent residency here, so I couldn't work or do anything here in the meantime. So I was just sitting around the house like doing nothing. So I was like, I might as well like write and what have you. And yeah, and that continued even, well past the point where I did get permanent residency and finally got like an actual like job and all that.
Yeah, so in February 2018, Colby hired you, in his quotes, out of necessity to write for SODO Mojo.
Sure, of course,
So,
of course, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, just I guess just talking a bit about your time at SODO Mojo, with writing, and then you eventually became the site expert as well, but or at least like co-site expert from what my understanding. So, yeah, just talk
Mhm.
about a bit of your time at SODO Mojo.
Yeah, I forget exactly when I became the co-site expert or whatever. I think that was probably like summer 2018, somewhere around there. Because at the time when I first joined, Colby and this guy Dan from Australia were like kind of doing that. And then Dan wound up leaving, and then they hired some other guy for like 3 weeks. And then I forget what happened. I forget if he got fired or he stepped away or something. So I was like, hey, I'll do it. Why not? Again, at this point, like I'm still not able to legally work in Canada. So I'm just like, I'm bored. And hey, I can make some money doing this, and it's a US company, so legally I can do it too. Right.
Hmm.
So yeah, so wound up doing that, and it was like $50 a month, well, if that. Right, but it was cool. I was producing Mariners content, and people that I had followed and consumed their content were starting to like pay attention to me, and that was cool. And that was like all that I was really wanting to get out of that was like, hey, like I'm finally like kind of part of this community, because I was on Twitter for years, like just kind of lurking and stuff. I try to engage with people, no one would reply with me, no one would fuck with me basically, and like, uh but finally, I started making content, and then they did, and it was cool. And so yeah, I mean, Colby kind of explained the whole fan-sided experience. It wasn't good. It was like, all, upon reflection, it was pretty rough. But in general, it did kind of mold my creative path in this space, if you will. And so for that, I appreciate it. And I look back on it fondly. And obviously that led me to meet Colby, that son of a bitch. And yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I can tell from both of your guys' like ways of explaining it that it wasn't, you know, the best experience, to be fair, but uh it is still kind of one of those things you have to point to, being like, if you guys hadn't done that, would you be where you're at now? Like, probably not,
No.
because it ends up leading to everything else.
No,
Uh
because at the very least, Fanside had this like platform in place, and it had the Twitter account, which at the time I think had like, when Colby took over, I think it only had like 1,000 followers or something. He really like made that thing go. And so that really helped because I was actually getting legitimate eyes on our content. And so people were aware of us, like the Joe Doyles of the world were aware of us. And that's how I met Joe, because Joe started reading our stuff. He started reading my stuff, and he reached out one day and he was like, "Hey, this is good stuff," you know? So um it's the way that I built a lot of my very early connections with people that were established in the community.
and I'm curious, but since that was your first writing gig, like, what made you, I guess, uh know how, like, know how to analyze the game in a way that you could write articles about it? Like, have you always kind
Mm.
of just been very in tune with baseball? And I mean, we'll get into it in a second, like there's also some Seahawks stuff, so football as well.
Mhm.
Kind of just have you always just been paying that much attention to the game, especially all the intricacies of it?
Yeah. I've learned a lot since starting to write. But you know, I would read Lookout Landing and stuff like that, and Fangraphs, and I was pretty aware of where baseball discourse was at the time, what was valuable information, what wasn't valuable information, all that. I was also really good at writing in general. Like I was really good at it in college. I had technically, well, technically, it isn't my first writing gig, actually. If you want to go all the way back to when I was like an early teenager, and you can find this stuff online still, uh, I still am to a certain degree. I was a very big fan of a video game called Kingdom Hearts, and I used to be on a forum called KH Insider.
Okay,
And on KH Insider, I eventually got hired as part of their like staff for free, right?
of course.
And I was writing articles on there. So I did have like some sort of experience writing in like an article format. And then obviously like I went to school and did really well and with anything that involved writing, anything that involved English. So that was just kind of my thing. And so I was able to apply some of that stuff. I also ran a podcast, by the way, back on that Kingdom Hearts site.
Nice.
And actually, it wasn't on that site, it was on a different site. Very funny that like Kingdom Hearts had like 7 different forums back in the day. I don't know why, but there were so many forums for Kingdom Hearts back then. And
Hmm.
so like we would all like, there would be beefs with one another and all this stuff, but I was like on 3 of them. I wound up being on like the site staff for like 3 or 4 of them. And I ended up doing a podcast for one of them. And yeah, so that also helped me, kind of, not really, but
Yeah.
I did have podcasting experience heading into doing the SODO Mojo podcast with Colby.
And then so I'm curious, like, when you're doing a Kingdom Hearts articles and podcasts, like, are you talking about like gameplay strategy? Are you talking about lore? Like, what exactly are you discussing?
It's everything. I mean, for the longest time during that era, it was like, when is Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out? When is that coming out? What is that gonna be like? Blah 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 blah. So a lot of it was like theory crafting and all this stuff, or like
Yeah.
news. There were like, you know, I don't know how familiar you are with Kingdom Hearts as a series, but around like 2008, they decided to really complicate the story of the series and release all of these like side games that you needed a PSP for and a Nintendo DS for and a phone for and all this stuff. So there were all these like different games coming out. So there was like news constantly to talk about
Mhm.
involving the series. But yeah, a lot of the discussions were like, hey, and, you know, this is like 12-year-old, 13-year-old time
Yeah.
being like, hey, what do you think's gonna happen in Kingdom Hearts 3? And like, you know, me and all my nerdy little buddies are like, well, I think this is gonna happen. Oh, I think Sora's gonna go to Pocahontas World.
Yeah. Do you want exclusive content? Because today you can become a member of the Raise the Trident channel for only $2.99, and you get some exclusive perks with that. Not only are you helping me financially, but you'll get 2-day early access to all videos except for breaking news, exclusive clips and segments from interviews, priority comment replies from me, and there will be some exclusive series as well. This is 100% optional. If you do not have the money, please do not spend it on me. However, if you do and you are willing to get some exclusive content, I appreciate it a lot. So once again, become a member today at Race to Trident. Go on desktop, you'll see the join button, click that, and you'll be all set up. So you're going back to SODO Mojo. Your last article for them was on May 29th, 2020.
Mm.
We heard from Colby his own story about what happened and why that was, you know, your last article. So in your own words, what occurred after that article?
All right, so I kind of skimmed through this part on the Colby interview when I watched it because I was like, all right, I know the story and I know probably the version of the story that he's going to tell. So I'm not sure if he mentioned this or not. I had actually technically gotten fired a couple of months beforehand. Colby and I had an agreement in place that like, hey, I got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I just got permanent residence. I just got an actual job. Like I don't have a ton of time to write. So I might be able to contribute like 5 articles a month and also edit for you. And we came to an agreement on that. Fansided, however, saw that I was like pretty inactive overall, and they just went ahead and they like fired me. And I was like, whoa, hold on. Like Colby and I had this agreement, blah, 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 whatever. They decided to kind of like reinstate me. Right. So I was already a little bit bitter about that. And then like obviously they weren't paying us anything. And really what was most frustrating was like Colby was having to do pretty much everything. I was doing like, you know, what I could and editing a lot of articles, but also we couldn't really get anyone else to write in general because, you know, they weren't getting paid. And we had asked them multiple times, like, can we start a Patreon? Can we do something to just give these people like even just like $1 an article or something, just so they're getting something for it? No, 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 no. We got told like at one point, I remember they were like, well, we're experimenting with Patreons with like our NHL channel, so we'll let you know. And then we never heard back on that and all that stuff. So Colby was having to do a lot of the work. I was feeling guilty about that. I was trying to do more, but I was still working almost every day at my actual job. And I was just tired and I had like no time really for like a personal life at that point. Cause like I'm also like a very like methodical writer. Like I can't just sit down and like type something up in 30 minutes. Like I'm also kind of like a little bit of a perfectionist. And so I just like I really like analyze stuff and I have to make sure like things look good and aesthetically pleasing and all that stuff, especially when it comes to articles. So yeah, so that would take me some time. And so, you know, just frustration was kind of boiling over. And then like Colby explained, um, you know, George Floyd is unfortunately killed, and you know, the riots start happening around the U.S. and or the protests start happening around the U.S. and there was protests in Seattle, and like a little girl got pepper sprayed by police, and Colby spoke out about that. Um, on the SODO Mojo account, and we got an email saying like we need to stick to sports and all that. And we're like, yo, like this is happening in our backyard. It's not like Colby was talking about something that happened in, like Charlotte. You know, like this is happening in our backyard. Like we should be allowed to speak on this. And you know, they weren't with it. And so just kind of the frustration of everything that had happened up to that point, and then that just how disgusting that was from them, was just like, you know what, fuck you guys. Like screenshot, posted on Twitter, boom.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, that's pretty much the story there. So yeah, I did get Colby fired. I did kind of go rogue. Like I wasn't, I think I did give him a heads up. I can't remember. Like I don't like the DMs go so far back, and we have so many. Like I'm not gonna go look back through that. But I think I did give him like at least a little bit of a heads up.
Mhm.
But yeah, I did go rogue, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just like post it.
So, well, he claimed that you tweeted out your guys' pay stubs, and you're kind of implying that you tweeted out like the email to not
I
talk
tweeted
about it.
out the I tweeted out the email first. I might have also tweeted out our pay stubs eventually,
Okay.
but that wasn't the first thing that I tweeted out.
Okay.
I think it was like after I knew like, oh, people are paying attention. I was like, oh, okay, all right, well, let's also show them like how little we're getting paid. You know,
Yeah.
uh, that was just kind of like the cherry on top. But yeah, I don't think that I posted the pay stubs right away.
Okay. So it was the email. Gotcha. So Colby claims that like right after that, obviously you guys were both out of the writing gig. Well, he actually claims that they tried to hire you back on after that happened, and then you basically
They
just
didn't
said
try
no.
to. No, they didn't try to hire me back on. Their CEO or whatever at the time did call me though, because he was trying to damage control and all that,
Of course.
you know, and we had a fine conversation. It was civil. Yeah, no, he didn't offer me my job back or anything, but he did say like, hey, like if you're ever interested in like coming back, like let me know. That was it. So kind of, but no.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wasn't interested in coming back because like it was still going to be the same stuff. And then lo and behold, I think Colby mentioned this in the interview. Like we get contacted by lawyers like a month or two later saying like, hey, we're filing a class action lawsuit against Fansided. And yeah, so I don't know if that's because of what we did and that like shed light on what was happening. I know there was like an article that had been written a few months before that about like with a bunch of like or like with a bunch of anonymous, you know, writers from Fansided like leaking stuff about like the pay and all that. So probably was just because of that, but yeah, I don't think our thing kind of helped that situation
Of
for
course.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd imagine your guys' stuff is probably in whatever that lawsuit is, just like an
Yeah.
exhibit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So Colby claims like right after that, he came up with the idea of control the zone after you guys both got the hook at SODO Mojo. So first, is that true that he came up with that? I guess to clear that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you guys start Control the Zone, which is obviously your guys' Patreon show, which is
Mhm.
still going today, even with you guys doing Locked On. So, kind of just what was it like going from SODO Mojo to your guys' own thing, where you guys are pretty much your own boss at that point?
Well, it wasn't like scary or really like a leap of faith because again, we weren't making really anything at Fansided. I mean, Colby and I kind of joked around like, how long do you think it'll take us to start making the money that we're making at Fansided?
Hmm.
And we're usually pretty pessimistic about like who's gonna mess with the stuff that we're doing and who won't. So we were like, maybe never.
Yeah.
uh yeah, that quickly got dispelled. But yeah, it was cool. Like I remember like we were just having fun back then. Like I didn't care. Like I was, it was middle of the pandemic at this point. I'm not working again. I lost my job because of the pandemic. So I'm just chilling, like at the house. I remember I would be like on like in the backyard, like on our back deck, just like doing a podcast, enjoying the sun, stuff like that. It was fun.
Hmm.
And it was like right around the time that the league was starting or was trying to start back up after the shutdown. And then like the draft happened, and it was a 60 game season, which like obviously, the circumstances that um made that happen terrible. But actually the 60 game season kind of fun. Like it's just like a sprint to the end, and like the Mariners were young and fun, and Kyle Lewis had a great first half of that season. That was really fun to watch. And um, we were talking all about that, and they were like they weren't terrible. And we were like, okay, you know what? Like all this stuff we were starting to talk about on SODO, after the start of the rebuild, and they made all those trades and all that. Like it's actually like it looks like maybe it's kind of coming to fruition. Like yeah, so there was a time of excitement, even though that, the team was, I think they finished 27 and 33. Like I was pretty stoked. And then obviously 2021 was awesome. But yeah, like we kind of just got in at like the perfect time. Right. It was just like the start of Control the Zone basically coincided with the organizational turnaround that ultimately led to ending the drought. And we got in at a time where like it was Lookout Landing, it was Jason Churchill, it was the beat reporters, the radio people. That was really it in terms of Mariners content. SODO, I guess, after they started back up after we left. But that was really it. Like there wasn't the content creator space that we have now. So when people have asked me, I think even you've asked me this before, like how did you guys find success? Like what did you do to like get your stuff out to the people more? And I was like, honestly, it's nothing we did. We were just early.
Yeah.
And like I stand by that.
Yeah, so after SODO Mojo and before Locked On, you were still doing Control the Zone. However, you moved on to writing about the Seattle Seahawks. You wrote a lot of articles for Seahawks on SI. You did have 5 episodes of a Seahawks podcast with Colby called Check 50. But what
Oh
made
my
you?
god.
Yeah. So what?
Jesus, you've really done your research on this.
Yeah, I tried. So, what
Uh
what made you not necessarily take a break from the Mariners because you're still doing Control the Zone, but you're still doing a lot of Seahawks content. So, what made you kind of want to do Seahawks in that interim period?
um it was paying $20 an article. That was part of it. Again, I wasn't like this was mid-pandemic. I'm not working at the time, so I was
Yeah,
like, I'll take any. Like I was getting my STEMI checks, but I was like, I need like some sort of also like actual cash that I'm earning, and I need to do something with my life that isn't just CTZ. Um, so yeah, and I was like, I like the Seahawks. I can write about the Seahawks, sure. And Colby was writing there, and he was like, yeah, I'll get you in touch with Corbin. Corbin Smith, who was running the site. Um, and so yeah, that went well. Like I was just a contributor for like the first few or for the 2020 regular season. It was basically from like training camp through the end of the season. And then I wrote this article about a drive that the Seahawks had that basically like clinched the NFC West for them against the Rams. And that started making the rounds. The Seahawks posted it on their roundup, and then Corbin reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, like this article is really good." It's like, well, my former editor, or like I don't have an editor anymore. Would you be interested in being my editor and like co-reporter? And he that was like a real job. Like he offered me real money,
Hmm.
like real, like livable, like more than livable money to do that. And I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
sure, absolutely. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, I might actually be able to do this like as a job, as a career. I even talked about this a little bit on Twitter the other day. Like Corbin kind of like that moment kind of changed my life in a lot of ways. And so I did that for well over a year. And then things kind of fell apart with SI, and the site was no longer appearing on Google, and our views were really bad for some months, and so we weren't getting paid a ton. And so then I got the opportunity to do inside the Mariners at SI, and I quickly backed out of that because of the leadership over there. And I don't have an issue saying this because I don't have any interest in cultivating any sort of relationship over there in the future. Like the leadership over there was terrible. And so I got out of that quick.
Hmm.
And lockdown at the time was starting to get bigger and better, and we were starting to actually make money off of that. And I was like, yeah, I was basically able to supplement my loss in pay from the Seahawk job with Locked On at that point, which was really cool.
Yeah, and you were also just before Locked On, you were producer and co-host for Seattle Overload, which is a podcast about the Seahawks. So,
Yeah.
did that end with just when the Locked On happened, or when the Locked On happened, when you got the Locked On job, or
No, no,
yeah,
no. Overload. I'm still technically producing Overload. Like it's mostly just me letting Maddie and Griff use my StreamYard account, but
yeah,
like I'll set it up for them and all that stuff. We've had some issues getting the show up on podcast platforms because we were with Odyssey, and they had like our RSS feed and all that stuff. Whatever, that's a whole different story. Um, but yeah, I've been still like I'm still like technically part of like the Overload lads, as we call our chat. So yeah, Maddie and Griff have become really good friends over the last few years. I met Griff through Maddie, and I met Maddie through the Seahawks site because Maddie was writing over there, and I was editing a lot of Maddie's articles. And then it was my idea to revive Overload because him and Griff had been doing that just like on SoundCloud or whatever. And I knew that like there was like a niche audience for their show, like a pretty large, but still niche audience for their show. And I went to Corbin one day. I was like, hey, like, what if we just made Seattle Overload like at the time, the site was called Seahawk Maven. I was like, let's just make it like a Seahawk Maven thing. And so we did that. And, eventually, after Maddie left Seahawk Maven and I left Seahawk Maven, we just continued doing it. And then we got the deal with Odyssey and all that stuff. And, yeah, that's been cool. Like that's a great show. Like if you're a Seahawks fan and you want to learn more about X's and O's, like cannot recommend it enough. Like Maddie and Griff are on it.
yep, yeah, and then so now we'll get into Locked On stuff. So, in your own words,
Yeah.
how did that come about?
Yeah, so this was summer of 2021. I was aware of Locked On like as a network, and I was aware of Locked On Mariners, but I had noticed like they weren't really posting that much. And I remember just making like some offhand comment to Colby about like, hey, we should like do Locked On Mariners. Like they
Yeah.
have like a because I saw it as very similar light to SODO Mojo, and like it has an already established platform. Like let's now there wasn't much of a following for Locked On Mariners at the time. I think the Twitter account had like 6 followers or something. But I was just saying like they have like Locked On has this like infrastructure in place that can kind of like help support us, and like I know that they have actual advertisers involved and all that. Like that could be kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Um lo and behold, like a month later after I made that comment to Colby, I get a DM from Sean Woodley, who's the host of Lockdown Raptors. Funny enough, like the guy lives literally like 30 minutes away from me, not knowing that I also live here in the area. Um, and he at the time was the head of the MLB division for Locked On, and he was like, "Hey, um, Jason Churchill." We reached out to Jason Churchill about potentially hosting Locked On, but he told us like that we should reach out to you. I was like, "Cool." So we talked, and I was like, "Hey, I would love to have a co-host." And so that's very important to mention because Colby loves to tell people how I got him fired. I also got him hired at Locked
Yeah.
On. So yeah, I think we're even,
Yeah.
to be honest. So yeah, yeah, we started doing Locked On August 2021. It was audio only at the time, and I remember we had like reservations about going to YouTube, and we literally started doing it on the last possible day before they were like getting nasty about it with people that hadn't started YouTube. And they were like, yo, like you need to get on YouTube or we're gonna have to like do something like about this. Like we're gonna have to go like a different direction. Cause we were just like, oh, it's so much work and we need to be on video every day and all that stuff. Like we didn't like we weren't sure, like we weren't the people that we are now, at the
Yeah.
time. We were just like really comfortable with just like doing the show off camera, just talking into microphones, like whatever. Uh, and that ended up being also kind of life changing. Uh, we were very stupid in thinking that YouTube wasn't going to help. Like YouTube changed a lot for us. So yeah, you live and learn. But I'm glad that we took the plunge and finally did it, and that's what's ultimately led us to being where we are now.
Yeah, so you guys, had your reservations about going on YouTube. Now that you guys are on YouTube, Locked On Mariners is the most subscribed to fan-led Mariners content on YouTube at this point. And you guys are pretty consistently like at the top of the rankings for just Locked On, at least MLB uh
Mm,
shows. I know you guys have your tiff with Locked On Astros. You guys keep competing back and forth and
yeah,
switching
yeah.
who's the leader there for subscribers. But yeah, it's like you guys are now both kind of seen as like, I guess the best word I can put it is like the pioneers of Mariners YouTube, which I think is, probably a very interesting thing. I mean, I had the Mojo guys on my channel last night, which will be coming out soon, but Colton was very specific about like, a lot of us wouldn't have this probably without Locked On Mariners being a thing. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. So I guess just how does it feel to like, I guess, have people looking up to you in that way and kind of
How's it
seeing
feel to
you
be your
like that?
leader?
Yeah, how does it feel to be our supreme leader of
Yes,
the Mariners
yes.
content people?
You're welcome, my children.
Yes.
No, it is really cool to see like what you guys are doing, like you now becoming YouTube partner, what Colton and Joe are doing, what TJ and Lyle are doing. Um, because that was kind of the goal. I mean, it was only just a year ago that I started doing like the content creators spotlight on the show. And like trying to get more eyes on these creators. Um, and now to see like what you guys are doing again just like a year later is pretty awesome. I think the thing that's really cool to me is how like this whole community of content creators that we have, we're all like cool with each other and we're all like collaborating with each other. I think it's really cool to like see like after I like went on Jay's Trident podcast and I went on your show and interviewed with you, and I had TJ and Lyle on and went on their show and all that, and that now like I'm seeing you guys like interact with one another and seeing you guys collaborate with one another. And like we had the fantasy football league, and now we're gonna have the fantasy baseball league and all this stuff. Like it's really like that stuff is really really cool to me to see that it's just like it's super positive. We all like just love the Mariners. We want to create content around the Mariners, and yeah, it's I hope it's something that we can continue forever. Like just like uh that like relationship that we all like kind of have with one another, because it's really it's super cool to just like see like a bunch of people get together, be super chill with one another, work together, all kind of like strived for one common goal and all this stuff, and you know, essentially bond over like one thing, which is the love we have for this utterly stupid baseball team.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, and you and Colby are pretty much the only people that I know of that do this for a living. So I guess how does it just feel to be able to make your living off of talking
Yeah.
ball?
Oh man, I'm grateful. Like I know sometimes I don't act it, probably more so privately than what you guys see. Like, Caroline's heard me complain a lot, but like, I have to like check myself at times and just like put things into perspective. I'm like, dude, you were literally working at a fucking movie theater. Like you, it's you can live with someone calling you a moron on the internet. Like
Yeah.
it's fine. It's fine. Like so yeah, it's taken a lot of like learning and growth and all that. And I found my pocket now. Like I'm cool. Like nothing really like bothers me or anything like that. And like I just kind of do my show and put it out there, and I interact with what I want to interact with and don't interact with what I don't want to interact with. And um I've gotten better about cultivating relationships and in the industry and all that. And I've met some really cool people and I've created some really cool connections over time. And it's yeah, I mean, back when I was like a little kid, I don't know if I ever mentioned this the last time we talked, the last time we did like an actual interview like this, but like when I was a little kid, and this kind of goes back into my background of like being able to actually do this professionally, like my my mom loves to always bring up how she would be upstairs and she would hear me like talking downstairs, but we were like the only ones in the house. She's like, who is he talking to? Well, I would be playing like MVP baseball or MLB the show or whatever. I would turn the announcer audio all the way down and I'd be commentating the game. Right. Like
Hmm.
as I'm playing. And like all I watched, like I was still watching like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and stuff like that, but I watched a lot of like ESPN as a kid.
Yeah.
Like I was big into ESPN and stuff like that. And so yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. But like um it's cool. Oh yeah, I remember now. Like now looking back on it, I was like, this is kind of like, I feel like I was like meant to do this. And it's kind of crazy seeing like what the show's become, how prominent Colby and I have become in the space, in the community, seeing the connections that I've made, the people that I've gotten the chance to meet and talk to and all that stuff. Like, yeah, like sometimes I have to kind of like take a step back, put it into perspective and be like, damn, this is pretty sick. So yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm really like, it's super cheesy, but whatever. I'm gonna say it anyway. Like without the people that watch the show, like this wouldn't be possible. So I'm like super grateful for our community. Sure, a lot of people that are watching right now are part of our community. So like, just speaking directly to you guys, like I'm super grateful for you, and you have literally changed my life. Like I'm not joking. You have literally changed my life.
So what would you say you've learned the most from doing Locked On or just content creation as a whole? Like what would you say is kind of like the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Uh, there's a lot of lessons that I've learned. Um, for me personally, and this might just be like a me thing, but like I don't like to get too high or too low. And at times I felt like I got too high or too low, and so learning how to kind of rein that in a bit better is one of the things that I've learned. Um, picking and choosing my battles. That's another thing that I've learned. Um, again, for the longest time, I didn't think this was going to be like a real like career path for me. So like on social media, like I was shit posting and like I didn't care. Like, I was just like beefing with random people and telling them how fucking stupid they are and all that. And so it took a while for me to like shake that and like try to act a bit more professional. Now, I still shit post on Twitter and stuff like that because whatever. Like Twitter's not fucking real.
Yeah.
Like so who cares? Like, like that's just not a real place. Like so like I still like mess around on there or whatever, but like I've cooled it a bit in terms of like going after people and stuff like that. Like, oh, yeah, like I'm trying to like I've tried, especially over the last like year and a half, to be a bit more professional in how I act on social media. So it's taken a while to kind of like learn and figure out. And like the thing too with this is just like I kind of just got thrown into it, so I've had to learn everything on the fly. I mean, like we can even get more into like technical stuff, like just learning about audio and video editing and stuff like that. Like I've learned a lot doing the show. I've learned a lot about myself. I am continuously learning how to just post in general, how to like carry a show, carry the flow of a show, when to talk, when to not talk, when to give Colby his air, all that type of stuff. Like I'm still learning that stuff to this day. Um, but yeah, um, those are the things that I would say that I'm learning them, or I have learned, or am still learning.
So it was recently announced that you'll be getting back into writing. Corbin Smith, who we mentioned
Yeah,
earlier, is starting his own website, Emerald City Spectrum, which is going to be covering a lot of different Seattle sports teams. However, I believe it's only starting with Seahawks and Mariners, and then it'll expand from there.
yeah,
But you were announced as kind of the Mariners reporter, is what it was labeled you as. So
yeah.
yeah, just how are you feeling about that opportunity to get back into writing?
So I don't know if I would call myself a reporter or like what I'm going to be doing on
I'm
there
just
is
going. That's
reporting.
what the social media
Yeah,
post
yeah, no,
said.
I know. But yeah, I was like, Corbin, I don't know if I'm reporting because like one, I live in Toronto, like I'm not gonna be on the beat or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would more so call myself an analyst, if anything. But yeah, this is very new, by the way. Like Corbin reached out to me about this 5 days ago. like,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Hey, I'm starting up this thing. Like, do you want to write about the Mariners?" And I'm like, "All right, sure, why not?" I was like, so long as I'm not having to write like 3 articles a day, like I was having to do over at SI. Like, I don't want to write clickbait. I don't want to sacrifice quality for quantity. Like, I don't want to do that. And that's the whole point of why he's starting this, is to have a site that's more so focused on quality and instead of quantity, because that's unfortunately the SI model now. It's just like pumping out just as much garbage as possible, aggregating all that. So yeah, you're not gonna get like a whole ton of content, right, from me, but yeah, you're gonna get a couple of articles every single week. I'm gonna talk about whatever the hell that I want to talk about with the Mariners, which is great because like there's always stuff that like I do want to write about. There's because I'll go on my long tangents on Twitter and I'm like, I can just write an article about this and probably have it be a lot more concise than whatever I'm gonna write here. Um, so yeah, I'm actually looking forward to having that ability, because like I kind of messed around with uh Substack. Like I started my own Substack, but I couldn't really commit to it, and I was just like, I'm not like, there's just kind of a passion thing. And the Seahawks site, as grateful as I am and was for it, it did take a lot out of me having to write so many articles every day, where like I for the last couple of years I've just been like, I don't want to write. I don't want to write. Like I'm just actively like avoiding writing. I've turned down multiple opportunities to write again over the last couple of years. one with a pretty big publication actually, which I'm now I look back on it. Maybe I
Yeah.
should have, but whatever. But whatever. Um, but yeah, like now that I've like kind of like gotten my assurance from Corbin that like, hey, like I only need you to write a couple of articles a week, then I'm like, all right, cool. Because like I'm good doing that, and I have some really cool ideas, and I want it to be a place where we can really like let content creators, writers show their personality, stuff like that. And so yeah, Corbin does right by his writers, and so that was another reason that I wanted to join that. And this was also an idea that obviously has been done before, but hasn't really been seen through a lot. And making a site that covers all Seattle sports, like obviously there's like the 710 Seattle Sports has its own website with written content on it, about all the teams, but like just a pure like website with just a lot of like hopefully at the end of this, when we can expand on all this, like it's a culmination of a lot of the content creators creating content for this website. That would be my hope, at least with this. I think that's a really cool idea, and um knowing Corbin and what he's done for me and what he's done for other writers, and uh, the platform that he has, I felt that it was yeah, it was a interesting journey at the very least to try out, right? See what happens with it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to starting it. We're launching on February 20th. I'm gonna have some content out that day. So yeah, be sure to check it out. Emerald City Spectrum.
Yep, link will be in the description, obviously, with all of Ty's stuff as well, so you can check that out. And we're not going to talk about like the off season or anything like that because everything's been talked about and
Thank
whatever. But
God. Thank
so
you.
I'm gonna keep you to just one Mariner specific question that is a lot more broad.
All
What
right.
is your message to Mariners fans right now?
Um, whatever you're feeling right now is valid. If you're incredibly frustrated, which I think a lot of us, if not all of us, are, you're valid to feel that way. This organization has done nothing to earn your trust, earn your excitement, and earn your money, frankly. If you're excited for the season to start, you're valid to feel that way as well. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. It's baseball at the end of the day. It's not that serious. Right? You're not a bootlicker. You're not part of the problem. You're not any of that. If you're excited about baseball, and I'm excited about baseball too. I'm very frustrated, but I'm also excited about baseball coming back because it's baseball. I love baseball. I can't wait to watch Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh hit dingers, and I can't wait to watch this rotation. Can't wait to watch Randy Arozarena do the point thing and be able to post memes and all that stuff. Like it's gonna be great, right? But yeah, I would just say like however you feel, uh, you're valid in feeling that way about the team right now.
Okay. Yep, I definitely agree with that. So we'll end this off. I promise you that we're gonna talk about it briefly here. Uh, you have some new music coming soon. Obviously,
That's right, baby.
Waldo Springtime on Spotify or Apple. You were previewing a little bit of it on a stream that I was watching on your Twitch.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because it felt a bit stylistically different than what you've came out with before. It felt a lot more, and I think I told you this, a bit more like funk Freddie Dread kind of feeling is kind of what I got from it. And I guess a little bit kind of like lo-fi too. So yeah, I guess just talk about like the new music, any inspiration behind it, kind of the style you're going for.
Yeah. So when we went to 3 shows a week on Locked On, which by the way, we're going back to 5 shows a week next week. So like
Fun.
that short period is already over. Yeah, I know, fun.
Your
I gotta
summer break
start.
is over.
Yeah. It looks like my summer vacation is over. So I've been using that extra time that I have on my hands to start working on an album.
Nice.
And that's what I've been doing basically every morning. like I'm working on music. I got my makeshift studio in the bedroom. I'm writing, I'm recording, I'm mixing, I'm doing all that. So I have an album coming out. This is an exclusive for you, Jake.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Got an album coming out first day of spring, of course, some Waldo
Of course.
Springtime. First day of spring, March 20th, 2025. I'll be releasing an album called Ultimania. And I'm planning on doing like a listening party stream on my Twitch, twitch.tv/ Waldo Springtime, if you're not following. Um, Probably the weekend before that date, because that's like a Thursday. The release date is a Thursday. So probably do a stream on like the Saturday or Sunday beforehand. So what is that? The 15th, 16th, whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to have fun, and I'm rapping my ass off on this album. It's I kind of just wanted to like shock people and be like, yo, the fucking Ahoy Sailors guy, yeah, he can spit like for real.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting busy on there, dude. Like I like it's I was listening to some of the stuff that I've been working on last night. I'm like, all right. Like I think this is gonna be something like there was a couple of tracks on there that I think if people who follow the show listen to it, they're gonna be like, oh shit. Like, because I think a lot of people they're gonna hear it like or like they're gonna see me tweet this out. They're gonna be like, oh God, oh no, what is he? Oh no, what is this poor guy doing?
Yeah.
Like, oh, buddy, no, just stick to your day job. Just stick to podcasting. No, no. But if you actually listen to it, I think like there's a song on there. It's called Floor Chicken.
Floor chicken. Okay.
I'll get into that in a second. There's a song on there called Floor Chicken. I think if people listen to that song, people are gonna go, oh wow, okay, all right.
Mhm.
So yeah, all right. So Floor Chicken. Let me explain that real quick. So Ultimania is an album full of video game references. Every title is a video game reference. Every song is a video game reference. It is an idea that I've had for a while, an idea that I hope to build upon in the future as well, of basically celebrating my two favorite things, which is music, specifically rap, and video games. And so Floor Chicken is a reference to technically Castlevania, though it's like wall chicken. You hit the little candle on the wall and it drops a chicken to heal you. But in Vampire Survivors, which is heavily inspired by Castlevania, uh, there's floor chicken, right?
Okay.
So there you go.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so every song, video game reference, it's full of video game references throughout, like in the lyrics. So for some people, like you're probably not gonna get a lot of the lyrics or a lot of the references, but I don't care. It's my music. Fuck you. You'll buy
Yeah.
it. And yeah, man, I've had a lot of fun. I think if people actually take the time to, check it out, I think they'll like it. I mean, I posted that EP back in 2023, Sunrise Over the Duke, and like some people listened to it and they were like, "Oh, wait, this is actually kind of good." Like, what the hell? Like,
Mhm.
so, uh, I can tell you this is way better than even that. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to people hearing it. Like no one's heard it. Like no, like Caroline's heard some of the stuff that I'm working on, but no one else has heard it, not even my like two in real life best friends,
Yeah.
um who've been egging me on to make music for the longest time, by the way. So they're in for a treat as well. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing their reaction. So they're going to be listening to it for the first time with you guys as well, in the Twitch chat. However, I will say this. um I have a lot of people that I know like working on this. Like I got my best friend rapping on a song with me. I got another one of my best friends doing an interlude on this. Caroline's on it.
Nice.
Uh I'm we haven't recorded yet, but my friend Jacqueline, who's incredibly talented singer, an actress, is going to be on it as well. Like so I've gotten everyone involved, you know, at least a little bit to a certain degree. So yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun. Like like you can tell that I'm like really excited. Like
Yeah, I could tell.
like some of the stuff that I made. I say some of the stuff as if like some of it sucks, but like all the stuff that I made, like it's super dope. It's super dope. Like it's music that I would legitimately listen to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited to hear it for sure, and yeah, it's just cool to be able to have or be able to do some like passion projects on the side while doing everything else. So it's
Yeah, I
always
needed
good.
something to put my creativity into.
Yeah,
Like that wasn't the Mariners. Like
yeah,
that wasn't doing this podcast. Like I I used to do like album artwork and stuff back in the day. I actually got some people to like pay me to do that for them, like way back in the day. Like I used to be like a pretty creative dude, like in terms of just like putting art out or like just kind of messing around with music and stuff like that. And then I kind of got away from that once I started writing and all that stuff. And I was like, I like writing, I like podcasting, don't get me wrong. And that definitely is a form of creative expression. But I did kind of feel like something was like missing for a while. So it's been nice to like get back into music, do stuff, and like also kind of going back to like what I was saying earlier of like how for a couple of years I was like, I just don't want to write. That significantly impacted me in terms of like writing music. I just couldn't do it.
yeah.
Like I would write a line and then I was like, I'm done. I don't know where to go from here. It's kind of like, you know, SpongeBob doing the, you know, he's writing and all like, you know, he's just
It's
hammering
just
away at
the
it and all yeah, he just writes the, right? So yeah, that was kind of me for a while, but yeah, I've shaken that. Gonna be writing about the Mariners again, maybe some Seahawks, maybe some Sonics over at Emerald City Spectrum. I'm making music again. I'm rapping my ass off. It's pretty sick. It's pretty sick.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to do another interview. It's
Yeah,
really cool. But yeah, I'm excited to see what you have in store for us and content wise,
yeah.
not only the writing but the music as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Any last words for the people at home?
Listen to my album. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't look at me posting this on Twitter and be like, oh, this poor white dude. Like just dude,
Oh, guy
make your
thinks he has a
podcast.
mic and he can just make music.
Oh, he thinks he can rap. He probably sounds like Eminem or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. Like no. It's my own style. I got some cool shit on the way. Like I think people will like it for real. So yeah, listen to my album. Come through to the stream next month. I'll post info about it. I'm hoping to eventually do a music video at some point for it. Like I'm actually like gonna put some effort into this thing. Like this is something that I'm taking pretty seriously. So yeah, come through, listen to the album. If not, you suck. And also listen to my podcast, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Go sub to Locked On if you aren't already. Check out Ty's stuff. Definitely need to do that. I agree with Colton's assessment earlier that I think both Colby and Ty are kind of the most important people when it comes to the content space, at least with the Mariners. So, just very grateful for the time you've taken to be on my channel multiple times now, and especially for both interviews. So, it's been very cool to get to learn more about you, and hopefully other people feel the same, being able to learn more about the people who they listen to on a pretty much daily basis at this point.
For sure,
Um,
man. I appreciate the opportunity and you know the invitation to come back on. I mean, um, you know, I already said this on Twitter, but what you're doing, and I even said this a little bit earlier, but what you're doing is really freaking cool to see. And yeah, I just you're doing great work, and I love seeing you kind of trying to connect the community more and all that. It's awesome stuff. So just
well, thank you.
keep killing it, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, just trying to do the best I can for the people at home, and You know, I think it's nice to see the, you know, I said it to Colby, like humanity's not the right word because, you know, we're talking about baseball, and but some people can get pretty brutal and act like people are like the worst people in the world for like a bad baseball
Sure.
take or
Yeah.
something. So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
cool to see the personal side to the people who you're watching, that just aside from their Mariners and baseball takes. But yeah, that's
Sure.
going to be it for this interview. I appreciate you watching. If you are, please subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps me out a lot. You can also like the video as well. If you choose to do so, you can pay $2.99 for a membership. I would appreciate that as well. You do get some
Do it.
exclusive perks. So
Give him money.
exactly. Yeah, it is helpful, and you get exclusive content. So, you know, hey, you're not paying for nothing. So, but yeah, I appreciate it regardless. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.